Well, welcome guys. Seems like we've got lots of personal trainers here, which is good to show everybody what's going on. The main purpose of this session really is to try and explain a bit about running technique, some of the myths, dispel some of the myths in minimalist shoe running and barefoot running. Modern shoes have become extremely well cushioned, and that cushioning has actually caused many problems really. And you'll hear often runners going, oh, I've got bad knees, I get shin splints, I get all these different issues, and it's all stuff that shouldn't really be happening at all. A lot of it is to do with the way that people are running. What tends to happen when somebody's running with really heavily cushioned shoes is their feet get right out in front of them into a heavy heel strike in here. If you land with your foot in front of you there, you hit the ground extremely hard, and you can see that my knee's straight. When that happens, there is no real way of the impact being absorbed properly through your body. If you stand up quickly, and just jump on your heel, alright? Okay, so there's a lot of impact there. Now just jump on the front of your feet, okay, so you can really absorb that. Okay. So when you jump on your heel, you're going for about an inch up, and you can feel that impact. Actually, when your foot's in front of you, the thing that has to give is your hip. So as you hit the ground, that's going to go that way. It causes lots of rotation in your knee, and that's where a lot of the problems come from this heel strike. The other factor that contributes to it is we spend too much time sitting down at desks, and we actually grow into the shape of the desk. These muscles get very weak, and these muscles get very short and tight in the shape of a chair. So again, that starts pulling our strides out right in front of us to even further. Shoe manufacturers thought, oh, we'll put lots of cushioning on your shoes, which allows you to do even more, and of course then you start getting the problems. So minimalist shoe running is a fantastic way of improving your running stride, but there is some stuff you need to know beforehand, because you can hurt yourself if you're not careful. I'm going to go quickly through what should be happening in your running stride, and then we might have a quick look. Not everybody's dressed for running, but we might have a go at some of the drills to try and improve our running. The first thing that should be happening is your foot should be landing underneath you. When your foot lands underneath you, if you've got a little bit of forward lean, it doesn't matter if it's slightly in front of your hips as long as it's below your centre of gravity. Okay. When your foot comes down, it lands on the front of your foot first, but your heel does need to come down to the ground at some point, even if it's just very lightly touching the ground. If you don't, and you start running around up on your tiptoes, it's going to hurt. A lot. Okay. It's going to hurt a lot. Okay. So it's really important. That's why I don't like the term forefoot running particularly, because it means I see lots of people running around on their tiptoes, and if you do that, you'll smash your calves to pieces. It will really hurt. So foot comes down, heel does come down to the ground very lightly. Your foot drives behind you. Okay. It's very important that your foot is allowed to stay on the ground long enough to get that drive behind you. If these muscles are not working as well as they could do, our body tends to get our foot not at its full extension of your hip, but its extension behind you, and you push off at the end of your stride, which is something you want to try and avoid. So foot comes down, drives behind you. The next thing that happens, you need to pick your foot up off the ground. Okay. It's very important to not push off on the end of your stride. In fact, you've got a stretch reflex there that will automatically push off a little bit on it. Okay, but it's really important to try and get extra stride by trying to extend your ankle, because it tends to make these muscles decide not to work. It shortens your stride prematurely. So foot comes down, drives behind you, then you need to pick your foot up. Okay, it's really important those feet get picked up. Okay. The reason being the lever arm principle. Just do this with your arms. Quickly try to hit your partner. Alright. Okay. And then close your elbow up and feel the difference in energy use there. So it's the same principle on your legs, but times it by thousands when you're running. So if you're a shuffler, you'll lose a huge amount of energy. So foot goes behind you, gets picked up off the ground to here. Also from this position, with our knees up with a smaller angle in here, we can bring our foot down underneath us. Okay. So it's going to go in a circle. If your knee's down here from a shuffle, your body's got to go, hang on a minute, if I put my foot there, I'm not going to get anything. So what tends to happen is that swing forward onto the heel. It doesn't work as well. So it's really important. Drive behind, pick your foot up to here, bring it back down in a circle. Okay. So moving up my body, thinking about my core stability. A lot of people, everybody talks about you have to have a strong core, but a lot of people aren't quite sure why you need to have a strong core. Your core is all about your posture. If you run with poor posture down here, it tilts your pelvis very slightly, which means that it really facilitates this heel strike. Okay. Now, if you're just doing a short run of, half an hour, something like that, you're probably not going to have to worry too much about your core. But if you're going further and you're doing a race where you're pushing hard, if your core decides it can't do any more, instantly what will happen, you'll see people watch the end of any race, you'll see people coming in like this, and running in. So yeah, when you come in like that, it's all your core muscles are just, they're not strong enough to support your weight. Your posture's there, your foot's out there, and in fact it's a lot more energy to be able to do that. So it's really important to keep your core really strong. Doing exercises in the gym obviously is a really good way. Another good way is just running off-road and running down hills off-road. You've got to hold your core strong. It's a really good way of doing it without having to actually sit and doing like abdominal exercises. Running on uneven surfaces as well, you've got to use your core. It's a really good way of working on it. So as we move up my body again, we need to think a little bit about what's happening with your arms. Now, arms are really functional. I often will see balancing arms doing this, or fairy wings. Okay, so if your arms are doing that, they're not really doing an awful lot. They're helping to balance you. We actually have a cross of muscle that goes from our shoulder to the opposite buttock on both sides, in a cross which is called the posterior sling. I think physios talk. It's really important. If you see sprinters running, they're like this, and you can see that their shoulder and their glute gets much closer to each other. If you don't use your arms properly and just for this balancing, you're reducing a lot of your power and your stride, okay, and allowing everything to start working properly. So it's really important that your hand, like one way of thinking about it is your thumb and elbow going past the top of your hip, okay. And it doesn't mean you have to run with your arms right in here, rubbing against there, because that won't be very comfortable. As long as you're not coming from side to side, your arms are not crossing your centre line, and they're going there. Okay. The faster you're running, the more arm swing you're going to provide. Okay. If you're distance running, probably not going to be moving as much, but they do need to be functional here. Okay. And arms are really important. The other thing, if you want to run faster, if you move your arms faster, you will move faster as well. Okay. Talking about posture again, it's very difficult to think about what's happening with your spine, what's happening with your stomach when you're running. Think about what's happening with your head. It's the easiest thing to think about when you're running. Think of somebody holding a handle on top of your head to try and pull yourself upright. Okay. One way of learning what good posture is, stand against the wall. Get somebody to put their hand on the wall so you'll bring your back in so it just touches their hand, and try and align yourself so you can remember what that good posture is. Things like the Alexander technique are quite good for that, where you actually lie on the ground with a book under your head, get somebody to put a hand under there. So if you can recognise what your good posture is, it helps you much more when you're running. I think about, most people tend to run with their head forward here. Some of it is from sitting at desks. People who've got their head a long way forward from sitting at desks, watching TV, things like that. Think about just very subtly pulling your head back, chin down slightly, head back, and that will help align your spine. if you can keep your focus on your head, everything else below will follow. Okay, posture is the most important thing. It's impossible to keep your feet underneath you if you don't, if your posture isn't right, because as soon as you get here, it's very difficult to start getting your feet underneath you. The benefits of getting your feet underneath you is, as we saw earlier when we jumped on our heels, there's a lot of impact. By having your feet underneath you, your ankles and your knees and your hips can absorb that impact correctly. So you've got your body's natural suspension system will start working effectively. Our bodies are designed to run barefoot. You'll see lots of different weird and wonderful methods to running. Some of them pose methods, various different things. They are all one, and their end product are one and the same thing. Trying to get our bodies to try and move back into the way that we were designed to run. There are some factors that will limit us. Modern living, unfortunately, is really unhealthy. Sitting at desks, we're not designed to sit down for as many hours as we do nowadays. So sometimes you'll find that you'll need to do various strength and flexibility exercises to get your body biomechanically correct first. So how do we do this is the next question. I would suggest, we're going to do some drills in a minute to show you the type of exercises you can do. If you are thinking of moving to minimalist shoes, it's a good idea to get barefoot, to actually run without the shoes on at all. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, some of the drills we're going to do. Not everybody's got running gear on, but you'll still be able to do some of these drills to give you an idea of it. If you will stand up. The first drill we're going to do is doing circles. Okay, so you're going to imagine you're riding a bike and you get a nice circle going on here. So scrape your foot past it. So already I can see some of you are out here scraping your foot. So that's what probably your natural running gait has been out there. So try and think about it coming here. So your foot's going to go in a circle. It's going to scrape down next to the other one. Okay. Try doing small circles, big circles. So make sure that you pick your foot up as you're doing. If you're running fast, these are the circles that are going to be going on. Okay, your foot's going to be right up here. If you're running slowly, you're not going to be quite as big. So make sure you don't push off at the end of your stride either. Try and keep your foot as level to the ground as you can. Varying success rates going on. Okay, so once you've done that one, try on the other side. Okay, so think of it being a really nice circle. Okay, as if you're riding a bike. Now when you're running, think about running in circles, running in circles, running in circles, and it'll help with your running. Okay, so get those circles going. The next exercise we're going to do is we're going to do a pickup. So just on one leg first, I'm just going to do that. Okay. So it's really important that your foot runs up the line of your leg. Okay, so it's coming up here. Now it's different. There's a knee high and a bum kick. It's right in the middle there. So that ankle, the joint of your ankle there should be right underneath your bottom. Okay. So sometimes you'll find those of you who are personal trainers and stuff, somebody's been sitting down like this for a long, long period of time. Quite often don't have flexibility. People don't have flexibility to get their foot up there. So it can be quite difficult to do this drill. You'll see it kind of go boing, boing, boing. Okay, so the whole concept of it is to do it quickly, up, and then the down doesn't matter. Excellent. And then once you've done one side, the other side. just careful you don't do a bum kick there. Your knee's got to come up as well. Yeah. Okay. Good. So then we'll move from that drill onto a more dynamic drill. So we're going to go from that into this. Okay. So it's really important that those feet are coming up underneath your bottom there. It's not going out there. It's not a bum kick. Not knee high. Okay. It's right in the middle there. Good. Right. Okay. Good. All right. That movement is the basis of all the other drills of everything basically. As a start, when you're out on the road, it's quite a good idea just to start like this, just to get a feel for the proprioception going through your feet, and then take off on it. Okay. The next thing we need to think about is our forward lean when we're running as well. Now, this is where a lot of people get it wrong. Forward lean means a very, very small amount of forward lean makes a really big difference. Okay, so we're going to find a wall somewhere, and you're going to just fall forward onto the wall a bit closer. And notice how my heels stay on the ground, my whole body is going to the wall. Okay. If you want to give it a go, or find a wall. And just make sure that your heels stay on the ground. Alright. Okay, good. Now come back into the middle there. The next thing so when I say lean forward, it's got to be your whole body leaning forward, coming from your ankles. Okay. So the next drill is to give you an idea of how little a movement makes a big movement. So bouncing on the fronts of your feet, you're going to lean very slightly forward and then back a bit, so you're controlling it all the way. Okay. If you find yourself doing this, then you've lent way too much. So it's really, you should be able to literally just control it until you can stay there. Okay, it's quite difficult. So try and do it without using your feet to kind of push you forward. Get it from leaning a little bit. So I think you can say it's a really small amount of movement makes quite a big difference, and that's where when you read on the internet things about leaning forward, people find it really difficult. Like, oh, I'm leaning forward and I can only get faster. So it's a really small amount actually. So the next thing we're going to try and do this drill again, and then we're going to lean forward and then stop. Yeah. So same drill, leaning forward, Try and keep it controlled. So keep that same cadence going on. Give it a go. Too much. Make sure you're not bowing at the waist. It's just literally just allowing your feet to your body to fall forward very slightly. Yeah. So varying degrees of success again. All right. I know it's a bit tricky being in a small room in here. So the next part of the drill would be, we don't really have a lot of room here, but to go from here to lean forward and just keep going. Okay. And those steps will certainly, I don't know if you notice when you're kind of moving forward, you're definitely on the fronts of your feet. Okay. That series of drills will get you onto the fronts of your feet. Okay. And then from then on, it's just a matter of managing what's happening with your stride after that. Making sure when we want to increase our speed, we need to increase our stride. But when we increase stride, we have to increase it from our hip backwards, or from where our foot lands underneath our centre of gravity backwards. people often make a mistake of trying to increase their stride, and particularly with minimalist shoes on, of overstriding by pointing their toes out and landing on the front of their feet out there. If you are running in minimalist shoes and you reach like that, you can hurt yourself a bit. So start off with a really short stride with a fairly high cadence, and then think about driving that leg behind you. To drive your leg behind you properly, you've got to pick your feet up. Okay, so if you're going to go fast and get a really long stride, your feet have got to be picked up to here. Okay. A lot of this stuff works from your stretch reflex in your hamstring. When you first start doing this stuff, you'll find that you haven't developed a stretch reflex, so it feels really hard work, muscle memory and that stuff. So don't worry when you first start doing it, you feel like it's getting you pretty puffed out. As you do more, you'll develop that stretch reflex and it'll start happening without you having to think about it. Okay. A few things to look for in people's stride is for a lot of you guys, if you're looking at somebody running, inherently we see a lot of stuff with people's hips moving around a lot of desk-based people. If you're looking at people running on a treadmill and they're getting a lot of pain, a lot of problems coming from their running, often it's their hips are moving around, their hip stabilizers are not very strong, their core stability is really, really weak. We all know that we spend most of our lives trying to get people's glutes and hip stabilizers working properly again and getting their core muscles working. Some people it's a bit harder to see. Look for things like in their stride, if their toes pointing out to the side as they bring their foot forward, it means that their hip has jacked up on one side, okay, as they've hit the ground. Whatever they're doing, whatever type of foot strike they're doing, if your hip jacks up here, your body's natural reaction is to go, hang on a minute, I don't want my foot to hit the ground there, so it'll turn it out to the side. And then you'll see it, as the hip gets extended again, you'll see a crossover on there as well. So look out for that toe going out to the side, and look out for that crossover. And if people are doing that, if they're landing with a very heavy heel strike, their hip's got to collapse because it's got to deal with that impact. By getting somebody's feet to move a bit more underneath them, it will reduce the impact, which means their hips won't jack up as much, and will help them with the issues that they've been having. Failing that, it's all about the normal stuff, getting the glutes working, getting all your hip stabilizers working, all that sort of stuff. Look at people's posture when they're running, making sure they're running with good posture, not their head right out there. Make sure their arms are moving functionally, that kind of stuff as well. A really good exercise to have people understand how to increase their stride, which you guys might find as well, is to stand with one foot on the edge of the treadmill, turn the treadmill on like just the slowest speed it will go, and just practice getting your foot behind you and letting it roll off without pushing off on it. Okay. Barefoot running. Have you guys got any questions on that stuff? Things to look out for with your clients? Okay. Barefoot running is a really, really good way. Don't think of minimalist shoes as a transition to barefoot, because barefoot is a much better transition to minimalist shoes, for the reason that if you run without your shoes on and you're not doing something quite right, it'll hurt and you'll stop doing it quite quickly, and you'll learn how to do it without it being sore. With minimalist shoes on, they do have, although it's thin, you lose a lot of proprioception on the bottom of your feet. So it allows you to keep doing whatever you're not doing quite right, and then because you've got no cushioning there, it can really start causing you problems on some of your bones and joints. It's really important to, if you run barefoot, things like broken glass, dog poo, all that kind of stuff, you won't tread on them. Trust me, you won't. So many people ask me, what happens if you tread in dog poo? And it's ridiculous. Like, when was the last time you did that? broken glass, if it's big enough for you to see it, you won't tread on it. You're very aware of it. That being said, be quite careful of running in grass. It is actually safer to run on the pavement because you can see what's in front of you. The downs up here is a really, really great place to do it. The thing to look out for in terms of safety if you're running barefoot is the little black rocks that come off the road. Those little black rocks are very difficult to see against the black pavement. Those are the one thing that can do you some damage, so look out for that. The other thing to look out for is if you're running barefoot, when you're running with doing stuff with shoes on, when we see a pavement when we're crossing a road, our natural habit is to stand on the edge of the pavement and walk and then step onto it. If you do that with barefoot, you put a huge amount of stress on your metatarsal, you can break your feet doing it. So be really careful that when you tread off a road onto a pavement, you don't put your foot on the edge there. It can really hurt you. Minimalist shoes, once you've done a load of that, I definitely recommend doing like a lap of the downs a week, literally. Even if you just do little bits of it, take your shoes off, stick them in a bush, run up and down a nice flat bit. It'll really help you, and you know, your running gait will naturally become much better. If it's not quite right and you feel a bit sore. If you get blisters under your toes, it means you're pushing off at the end of your stride. So try not to do that. If you run barefoot and you've got blisters there, that's why you're doing it. Just try and pick your feet up off the ground. So when you move into the minimalist shoes, like I've got a load of trail gloves that people can try on over there. Things to look at, you will get past the calf soreness. I would say that the best way to look at it is doing, for your first week running, a 5-minute run, a day off. A 5-minute run, a day off. Okay? It's really important you just keep it as 5 minutes. If you get home, you're like, oh, I didn't really feel like that, I didn't feel that, and the next day you'll be like, oh yeah, I can feel that. That's fine. If you go out and you go, ow, that hurts on the day you do it, the next day you'll be in serious pain. So just be really careful. So first week, 5 minutes every other day. Second week, 10 minutes every other day. Third week, 15 minutes every other day. Fourth week, 20 minutes every other day. And then increase your mileage at 10% a week. The difficulty is for people who've already got mileage and they're trying to move to the sort of more minimalist way. The best thing to do is to do the same, do your 5 minutes and then change your shoes, do your normal run and job done. Or do your normal run, change into the minimalist shoes, do 5 minutes, and then start increasing the amount of time you're doing the minimalist shoe and decreasing the amount of time you're in your normal shoe. It's a really good way of doing it. With all things, if it feels sore, if it's really sore, just take a few days off, it won't do you any harm. Okay. Once you get past the calf pain, which you'll get if you're running, when you run with a heel strike, you are loading your calf muscle concentrically. So you're loading your calf muscle while shortening it. And when you run midfoot or with your feet underneath you, you're eccentrically loading your calf. So you're loading it and then lengthening the muscle, which is a lot more stressful for it. So you will get sore calves at the beginning. It's just you've got to be really careful of managing that so without injuring yourself. That you'll get past that. The next thing to start thinking about if you're just running in minimalist shoes is your forefoot, the connective tissue and muscles. If you're used to wearing really soft cushioned shoes a lot, become quite weak. And because they've become a bit weak, if you're putting a lot of stress on those bones, instead of being supported by the connective tissue, actually start hitting the ground, and that's where you hear where people have broken metatarsals and that kind of stuff. You've got to manage that. If you get any soreness in your foot, in the front of your foot, wearing them while you're running, stop, walk. Don't run at all anymore, because that's a sure sign that something could go. When metatarsals go, they just go like that without any warning. So you've got to be really, really careful. That that's where mileage obviously is really important. Walking around barefoot a lot helps. Working in minimalist shoes, if you've got them, is a really good way of keep getting those, getting your muscles nice and strong again under there. You can heel strike with minimalist shoes, so it's a really good idea to just from time to time look on the bottom of your shoe. It's very difficult to know that you're doing it unless somebody tells you. Look at the wear pattern on your shoe. If you've got a load of stuff going on the back, then you've probably got your heel in there. So take your shoes off again, run barefoot, and we'll get you back to the right pattern, and then continue with it. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? I know I've gone through an awful lot of stuff already on there, on minimalist shoes, minimalist shoe running, how to incorporate it in your training. Very quiet. Is anybody interested in converting to minimalist shoe type stuff, barefoot? Not really. Okay.
What's your views on the injuries between, say, people who are running with normal trainers, and people who develop minimalistic running?
Yeah.
Is there less injuries?
In the first, depending on how people have, once you've converted to, the conversion time is about 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I would say, when you start reaching the distances and the speeds that you were running before converting, 9 months to a year. So you're looking at a fair amount of time. Where you see a lot of injuries are from people going to the shop and pulling them out of the box and going, I'm going to go on my 10-mile run, and then they get calf injuries. And then people, the other one, which is really common, people get past the calf soreness and get the metatarsal problem. So in that initial phase, the chances of injuring yourself can be quite high if you're not paying attention to it. Once you're converted, it's the rate of injury is really low. I mean, just repetitive strain injuries, things like your knees and hips, because you've got your feet underneath you, you're really using your body's natural suspension system. You're putting a lot less stress on your body, so it's good. Just to put things into perspective, the top 3 runners in the Lakeland 100, I know all of them, and they all run in minimalist shoes in all their training. They don't necessarily wear them when they race. I often hear at races, if minimalist shoes are so good, why do I never see them at races? They don't really have a place in a race because you can't, if you're running far, it's very difficult to run downhill on rocky crags fast when you've got to be focusing on where to put your feet. So, and they're efficient. You can really build your efficiency becomes much better from it. And to run those distances, you've got to minimise your risk of injury as well. So, yeah, it's good. The fact that the top 3 I know for sure wear minimalist shoes does say something. Yeah. Any more questions on any of that stuff? No? I've got a load of trail gloves there if you guys want to try any on. There's all sorts of different sizes. I'm happy if you want to have a little run up and down the road outside in them. Nobody's not necessarily dressed for it. Okay. If anybody has questions on stuff, feel free to email me. It's piers@naturalrunningschool.com. I'm in here quite a lot. I'm only around for 3 more weeks before heading off to Dubai forever. So if you've got anything you need to do, do it quickly.
What's the advantage over hill toe running over natural running?
The main advantage, when you're going from heel to your toe, every time you put your foot out in front of you, you put the brakes on. So in terms of speed, it's when your foot lands in front of you, you've got everything that happens from there until the point underneath your centre of gravity is putting the brakes on effectively. So as soon as you hit the ground there, nothing's really happening until you've got to there, and then you're driving off behind you. The other thing is the problem with that, having a straight leg and all that impact coming up through your leg. If you're, if the muscles aren't particularly quite like kettlebells have quite a wide Q angle where the hips are coming down here, so if they've got a lot of impact going on, it can cause a lot of knee roll and can cause a lot of injury from that. So, it's definitely, not only because it's more efficient, because your body can work biomechanically.
So it's more kinetic now. It's more kinetic, so it's just continuous, it's kinetic.
Yeah, you're using your stretch reflex effectively on your muscle. You'll see stuff about running of a cadence of about 180 steps per minute. 180 is, I think, is a little bit high, but that's the optimum level at which your stretch reflex can work for your running stride. In fact, everybody's a bit different. I'd say it's between 160 and 180. But you're certainly more efficient running at a higher cadence than you are if you're just sort of stomping, because your body can't react properly to that slow cadence, so keeping it up.